Greatness is exciting, but at a certain point, greatness becomes terrifying. Michael Jordan didn't just beat teams, he changed how they played basketball before the game even started. Most fans today only know the highlights, the dunks, the clutch shots. That's not what made prime Michael Jordan dangerous. The real question isn't how great he was, it's this: how did one player make entire teams feel helpless? Opponents didn't talk about Jordan like a superstar. They talked about him like a problem, something you tried to survive, not stop. Tonight, we're breaking down the exact stretch where Michael Jordan stopped being human and became inevitable. Because once you understand prime Jordan, you'll never watch basketball the same way again. Prime Michael Jordan didn't appear overnight. He wasn't a prodigy who walked into the league with the polish of a champion. Instead, the player the world now calls the greatest was forged through a slow, undeniable evolution. An evolution that began with raw athleticism, sharpened through endless failure, and eventually transformed into a version of Jordan that even his greatest rivals described as unbeatable. To understand how good prime Michael Jordan really was, you have to begin with the context of the NBA he walked into. The mid-1980s weren't built for scores. The league was more physical, defenses were far more punishing, and superstars didn't get the whistle they do today. If you drove into the paint, you were hit. If you rose for a jumper, defenders could hand-check you, bump you, and crowd your space without consequence. Yet even in this unforgiving environment, Jordan walked in and immediately played like someone from a different era. In his rookie season, he didn't just score. He carried a franchise that hadn't sniffed relevance in years. Chicago was broken, attendance was poor, the roster had no direction. And yet, in less than a month, the league realized Chicago suddenly had a star. Jordan wasn't just scoring 28 points a night, he was doing it efficiently, fearlessly, and with a style that made veteran defenders openly frustrated. Roy S. Johnson's "A Star is Born" wasn't an exaggeration, it was a warning. But early Jordan wasn't prime Jordan. He was gifted, explosive, and electrifying, but still imperfect. His jumper wasn't fully reliable, his strength wasn't fully developed, his understanding of team defense wasn't refined. What separates prime MJ from rookie MJ is everything he added after being repeatedly tested and sometimes humbled by the league. The first true test came in year 2, when Jordan suffered the broken foot that sidelined him for 64 games. Most athletes would return cautiously, easing their way back into rhythm. Jordan returned like a man racing against time. And in the playoffs, against the 1986 Celtics, widely considered one of the best teams ever assembled, Jordan delivered what many still call the greatest individual performance in NBA history. 63 points in the Garden. Larry Bird famously said the performance felt like God disguised as Michael Jordan. Yet even after this breakout moment, the Bulls were still miles away from being contenders. And this is where the evolution began. Jordan realized that greatness wasn't just about scoring. It was about control. It was about dominance on both ends. And in the late 1980s, he began morphing into something no one had ever seen before, a player who could lead the league in scoring while also being the best defensive guard in the world. The 1986-87 season showcased this transformation. Jordan became only the second player in NBA history to score over 3,000 points in one season. But even more impressive was the defensive leap he made. 100 blocks, over 200 steals. He wasn't just athletic, he was terrifying. Guards feared his footwork, forwards feared his timing, centers feared his leaping ability. Prime MJ wasn't a scorer who defended, he was a defender who also happened to be the best scorer alive. Yet even this version of Jordan wasn't enough to win championships. Because while Jordan was ascending, the Detroit Pistons were standing guard over the Eastern Conference. And they were unlike any opponent he had ever faced. They weren't just physical, they were strategic. They created the infamous Jordan rules, a system designed solely to frustrate him. They hit him on screens, they trapped him on drives, they forced him to rely on teammates who weren't ready, and it worked. The Pistons beat Jordan in '88, then in '89, then again in '90. These losses became the sharpening stone of prime Jordan. Instead of complaining, Jordan trained. Instead of blaming teammates, he built them up. By the start of the 1990-91 season, Jordan had added functional muscle. His footwork improved, his vision improved, his leadership improved. He wasn't just playing basketball anymore. He was controlling every possession, every movement, every detail. This is where true prime MJ began. In the 1991 season, the Bulls became a machine. Scottie Pippen blossomed into an all-NBA force. Phil Jackson gave Jordan the triangle offense, a system that didn't rely on isolation. For the first time, Jordan didn't need to fight every battle alone, yet even within a more balanced system, Jordan remained the apex predator. He averaged over 31 points on nearly 54% shooting, a number unheard of for a perimeter scorer at that time. Once the playoffs arrived, prime Jordan showed the world exactly what dominance meant. The Bulls didn't just beat the Knicks and the Sixers, they dismantled them. And then came the Pistons, the team that had broken Jordan for 3 straight years. This time, the Bulls swept them. No drama, no struggle, no doubt. The Jordan rules were dead, and Jordan had buried them himself. In the finals, the matchup with Magic Johnson became more than a basketball series. It was a symbolic passing of the torch. Magic represented the old NBA, the Showtime era, the royalty of the 80s. Jordan represented the new world, a rising force poised to redefine everything. And he didn't just win, he dominated. The switch hands layup became instantly iconic, but his leadership, defense, and efficiency were equally impressive. Jordan walked away with the Finals MVP, and the league officially belonged to him. But what makes Prime MJ extraordinary isn't just the titles, it's the consistency. From 1991 to 1993, Jordan was at the absolute peak of his powers. He won scoring titles effortlessly. He won MVPs. He won championships. He led the league in steals. He controlled games without relying on the three-point line, without load management, without hand-checking restrictions. Dominance wasn't measured in highlights. It was measured in the fear he created. Players across the league began telling stories about facing Jordan during this era. Some said he memorized opponents' tendencies better than coaches. Others said he punished minor trash talk with 40-point nights. Many said he played with an internal engine no one else possessed. Clyde Drexler once recalled that playing against Jordan felt like competing with someone who had already seen the future, and he was simply reacting to it. And then, just as the dynasty reached its peak, Jordan walked away. After the emotional exhaustion of 3 straight titles and the devastating loss of his father, Jordan retired. For most superstars, the story would end here, but Prime MJ had another act left. When he returned in 1995, Jordan wasn't the same athlete he once was. He was slower, he was older, but mentally he was sharper than ever. And with the addition of Dennis Rodman, the Bulls re-emerged even stronger. The 1995-96 season wasn't just great, it became legendary. 72 wins, a record that stood for 2 decades, a level of defensive dominance that made games feel unfair. Jordan won yet another scoring title, reclaimed the MVP award, and led the Bulls to the championship. This second run exposed another side of Prime MJ. Control under pressure, the flu game, the Byron Russell crossover, the final shot in Game 6, arguably the greatest farewell moment in sports history. In these moments, Jordan displayed the part of his prime that numbers can't measure, the refusal to lose. When the game hung in the balance, Jordan became the most predictable superstar ever, because he always delivered. If we zoom out and examine Prime MJ in totality, the picture becomes clear. He wasn't just a dominant scorer. He wasn't just a lockdown defender. He wasn't just a winner. He was the rare player who excelled in every area of basketball at the same time. Efficiency, defense, leadership, skill, athleticism, clutch performance, consistency. There is no weakness in his prime. None. And this is why discussions about how good he really was often feel incomplete. Because prime Michael Jordan wasn't defined by a stat line or a single season. He was defined by a decade of relentless excellence, one where he set the standard, raised it, and then forced everyone else to chase it. Quick pause. Some moments don't belong on a screen. They belong on a wall. We've turned the Prime series into limited edition canvas art, not merch, but reminders of the mindset behind greatness. If you're watching on TV, scan the QR code on screen. Otherwise, the link's in the description and pinned comment. By the time Michael Jordan reached the peak of his powers, something strange began happening across the NBA. The league didn't just see him as the best player, they began calibrating success around him. Entire franchises built rosters specifically to stop him. Coaches designed defensive systems with one purpose: survive him. And players, even the most talented ones, started judging their careers based on how they performed against him. That's when you know you've crossed into a different category of greatness, when the sport becomes shaped by your existence. Prime MJ didn't dominate because he was stronger or faster, though he certainly was those things. He dominated because he understood the game at a level no one had reached before. He knew when to slow the game down, when to accelerate it, when to attack, when to bait a defender, and exactly when to deliver a knockout blow. His control over tempo was so complete that even opponents later admitted they often felt like they were playing on his schedule, not theirs. And nowhere was this control more obvious than in the biggest moments. Most players rise in the playoffs, but very few become a different species entirely. Jordan wasn't just a better version of his regular season self in the postseason, he was unstoppable. His playoff scoring averages, still unmatched today, weren't inflated by pace or three-pointers. They were built through mid-range mastery, relentless drives, and the ability to punish every defensive mistake instantly. When the crowd got louder, Jordan didn't just become good, he became inevitable. This is why the legend of Prime MJ isn't built on a single game or a single shot. It's built on a pattern, repeated year after year, series after series. When the moment arrived, he never folded. Not once. He never had a meltdown game. He never choked a series. He never lost a finals. He never let the pressure redefine him. Instead, he redefined the pressure. Players from that era still tell stories that feel almost unbelievable. Stories about Jordan predicting plays before they happened. Stories about him dropping 40 points with minimal warm-up. Stories about him punishing defenders simply for looking at him the wrong way. Stories about him inventing reasons to get angry just to elevate his level. In an age without social media, without 24-hour sports coverage, many of these moments lived only in locker room whispers and post-game conversations. But the consistent message behind all those stories was the same. When Jordan decided the game was over, it was over. And if you want to understand the level of psychological dominance he had over opponents, you need to examine one specific area of his prime: the closing minutes of tight games. Statistically, Jordan's clutch numbers aren't just impressive, they're absurd. He shot better in the final 5 minutes than he did in the previous 43. He defended harder. He rebounded with more urgency. He made fewer mistakes. And while other stars collapsed under the tension, Jordan looked more comfortable the closer the game came to the edge. Take Game 6 of the 1998 Finals, the last dance, the last battle, the last chance to seal his legacy with Chicago. The Bulls were down 3 with less than a minute left. The crowd was exploding. Utah had the momentum. And yet, every person in that arena, fans, coaches, players, felt the same thing. Jordan was going to take over. And he did. The layup, the strip on Malone, the final shot over Russell. 3 plays in 37 seconds that captured everything Prime MJ represented: poise, precision, and a refusal to let the ending belong to anyone else. But here's the secret behind Prime Jordan that most fans don't know. It wasn't the athleticism, it wasn't the scoring, it wasn't even the 6 rings. It was the combination of all of it, at the same time, with a competitive engine that simply didn't turn off. Prime Jordan wasn't just the league's best player, he was the league's best scorer, best perimeter defender, best mid-range shooter, best isolation player, best closer, best leader, and most efficient star. Simultaneously, no one else has ever dominated this many categories at once. Most superstars excel in 1 or 2. Jordan excelled in all of them, and as his prime progressed, he transformed the sport in ways even he didn't fully realize. He made athletic scoring wings valuable. He made the mid-range game an art. He made footwork a science. He made defensive intensity a requirement, not a luxury. And he made winning, not stats, the ultimate currency for greatness. This is why legends who played in his era speak about him with a tone that borders on disbelief. Magic Johnson once said that Jordan played like he had superpowers. Larry Bird described him as God disguised as Michael Jordan. Charles Barkley admitted that Jordan broke him mentally because no matter how good Barkley played, Jordan was always better. Even Kobe Bryant, who modeled his entire game after Jordan, later admitted that MJ was the only player who could beat you physically and psychologically at the same time. These sentiments are not exaggerations. They are reflections from players who stood across from him and understood firsthand what it meant to face the peak version of Michael Jordan. And that brings us to the final, undeniable truth about Prime MJ. In sports, greatness is often debated. Championships, MVPs, scoring titles. Fans argue about which ones matter most. But when you study Prime Jordan, when you watch the film, when you hear the stories, when you analyze the numbers, something becomes clear that cuts through every argument. Michael Jordan wasn't competing with other players. He was competing with the idea of perfection. That's why his prime looks so overwhelming. That's why his highlights age so well. And that's why, decades later, his legacy hasn't faded. It's grown. Because prime Michael Jordan didn't just play basketball. He redefined what basketball could look like at its absolute peak. And when the question is asked, how good was prime Michael Jordan actually? The answer is simple. He played at a level no one before him reached, and no one after him is matched. He wasn't just the best player in the world. He was the standard the world still can't reach. Prime isn't a video, it's a mindset. If that means something to you, the Canvas link is below, or scan the QR code on screen.